All right, welcome back. We are now in Canto 15 of Inferno. We've made it through the regions of Upper Hell, where the reason had been submitted to lust, whether that was from actual lust, sexual lust, or greed for possessions, or greed for food, or this overwhelming wrathfulness. So then that transitioned into Middle Hell with the sixth circle being the heresiarchs, and then the seventh circle being the place where violence proper was punished. And so in the first wheel, you have the tyrants and the robbers. Remember, you can commit unjust force and do injury against a person and a person's goods. So your neighbor and your neighbor's goods, that's tyrants and robbers. Self and self's goods, your own goods, that's suicides and squanderers. And then now we are in the third wheel with the blasphemers, those who do violence against God. Now they can't actually do physical violence against God, so blasphemy is the sin here that we're dealing with. Violence against God, blasphemy, and then violence against nature, and that's sodomy, homosexuality. It is cutting across the grain of nature for the homosexual act. Two men to be performing this kind of wicked, debauched behavior is a violation of nature, right? And so that's what's being punished here in the seventh circle in the third wheel with the blasphemers. We'll get to the usurers in a couple cantos. So there are two cantos that deal with the sodomites, Canto 15 and Canto 16. This first canto is there are two groups that walk around. Remember, the blasphemers are lying on their backs looking up at God, looking up toward the heavens. The sodomites are walking around, constantly moving, and then the usurers are huddled together at the edge of the cliff. So we'll see we'll see them in Canto 17. And for 15 and 16, we have two different groups. We have the kind of middle class sodomites, and then you have the aristocratic sodomites in Canto 16. So there's a class distinction here, and they don't mix. And so in this canto, we meet a teacher, a mentor of sorts, Brunetto Latini, or Latino, as he spelled his name often. And he was something of a mentor to Dante, and whether they actually met in life is unknown for certain. Latini would have been in his late 80s when Dante was in his early 20s in the 1280s. So we're not quite sure if they actually met, but Latini had produced a number of really influential works, his books, his testro in particular, his treasure. It was written in the vernacular and was a philosophical text, a kind of an encyclopedia of sorts. And that was really influential on Dante, especially as Dante is now embracing that vernacular approach to philosophy, theology. Latini wrote in Old French or Occitan French, and so not in Italian, but he was in Italy and was known in Italy, and Dante would definitely knew of him and maybe even knew him personally. So there's a little bit of background. There's not very many references to sodomy in particular. There's a couple little semi-veiled hints, but Dante doesn't spend a whole lot of time talking about that particular sin. And this of course has produced no end of discussion. Why does he not talk about it? Obviously they're in hell. Obviously he thought of it as a sin, but he's using this opportunity for these particular conversations. One with Brunetto Latini in Canto 15, and then with three aristocrats in Canto 16. So, with that as a background, let's dive in. Canto 15 of Inferno. One of the hard margins bears us along. The fumes from the runnel make a thick shade, shielding both the stream and its banks from fire. As the Flemings, between Ouessant and Bruges, fearing the floods that rise up against them, make their dikes in order to shun the sea. And as Paduans along the Brenta, to defend their villas and their castles before Corinthia senses the warmth. The margins on which we walked were like these, though they were neither so high nor so long, made by that master, whoever he was. So take a brief moment. So they've come out of the wood of the suicides and are in this plain, these dunes, these hot burning sands. And part of the punishment for the sodomites and for the blasphemers and usurers is to be on this hot burning sand. The sodomites themselves walking constantly, burning their feet. And so you think, well, are Virgil and Dante burning their feet? No, because they have a ring that goes around in between the wood and the dune that is lifted up, that raised up. It's about 5-6 feet off the ground, and it's a stone pathway, you might say. And they walk on that, and they're protected from the fire flakes falling down and the hot burning sand. And that's important that they're raised up to understand what happens in a moment. Already we had moved on from the wood, such that I could not have seen where it was, even if I had turned myself around, when we came upon a legion of souls who were walking beside the bank, each one regarding us, as in the dusky light of a new moon one gazes at others. In such a way their eyes squinted at us, like old tailors looking at their needles. Having been noticed by this family, I was recognized by one who grabbed me by the hem and shouted, "What a marvel!" Right? So here we have Dante and Virgil walking up, and there's a group of sodomites down below, and one of them looks up and grabs his hem, right? Grabs the hem of his robe. So he's reaching up to grab the bottom of Dante's robe. So that's how that works. He's down below on the dunes, and Dante is up above. So Dante's going to kneel down to look at whoever this is. And after he stretched out his arm toward me, I stared hard through his scorched exterior, but his burnt face could not defend against my intellect perceiving who he was. Reaching my hand down to his upraised face, I answered, "Are you here, Sir Brunetto?" It's a really touching line, actually. It's one of the only places in hell that the formal ser, S-E-R, or sir, is used, giving great deference and respect and honor to this sinner. Are you here, Sir Brunetto? You can hear the sorrow and the sadness in Dante's voice. And he, "Oh, my son, let it not vex you if Brunetto Latino turns behind a little, leaving them to walk with you." I said, "I beg you as much as I can, and if you desire I should sit with you, I will, if it pleases him who guides me." "Oh, son," he said, "whoever of us stops at any point must lie 100 years without brushing off the burning fire flakes. Therefore keep going, I will come behind at your hem, and then will rejoin my troop that walks weeping their eternal losses." I did not dare descend from the margin to walk on a level with him, but held my head bowed as one who goes reverently. He began, "What fortune or destiny leads you here before that ultimate day? And who is this one showing you the way?" "Up there in the world, in the serene life," I said, "I lost myself in a valley before my days had reached their full number. I left it only yesterday morning, though I had turned back before he appeared, who is bringing me back home by this path." He said to me, "If you follow your star, you can't fail to reach a glorious port, if I well understood in that blessed life. And if I had not died before my time, seeing the heavens shower you with kindness, I could have given comfort to your work. But that ungrateful, malignant people, who from ancient times came from Fiesole, and still reek of their mountains and boulders, will, for all your good deeds, stand against you. And this makes sense, for it is not fitting for sweet figs to fruit between the sour sorbs. Their ancient reputation calls them blind. They are avaricious, envious, proud. Make sure you keep yourself clean of their ways. Your own fortunes saves such honor for you. Your own fortune saves such honor for you. Both one side and the other will hunger for you, but keep the beak far from the grass. Let the Fiesolan beasts tear each other apart, making straw, and not touch the plant, if any should still rise out of that muck, in which might revive the holy seedling of that Roman people that remained there when it became a nest of such malice. Okay, so this is quite interesting. Sir Brunetto asks Dante, hey, how'd you get here? And Dante very briefly says, this guy brought me here. And then immediately Brunetto responds with, if you follow your star, there's no possibility that you won't come out right, right? He's seeing in Dante, he's affirming in Dante a talent that he saw in life. And then he goes on to warn him about this. We've seen this before already in Canto 6. This coming doom that's going to happen. There are these people, the Fiesolans lived out. They're kind of like the Hicks in relation to Florence. Florence is the urban city, the cosmopolitan, the metropolitan class. And then outside the city walls and up in the hills a little bit, that's where Fiesole is. And there was a rivalry. There was an antipathy between the Fiesolans and the Florentines. And so Brunetto Latini is saying here, they are going to turn against you. These beasts, these wretched ones, these Hicks, they're going to turn against you and make your life really hard. But stay strong, right? They will end by tearing themselves apart. And we know now, looking back on this, that what Brunetto Latini is referring to is the exile that's coming. But the pilgrim still doesn't know anything about the exile. So this is just one more indication that something bad is coming, something bad is around the corner, and he's going to need help understanding what that is, which we'll get to later in the poem. The pilgrim responds and continues, "Were my request most fully satisfied," I answered, "you would not yet be banished from human nature, for it is a thing fixed in my mind and grieves me even now, the dear, good, paternal image of you when, in the world above, from time to time, you would teach me how man might make himself eternal. How grateful I am for this will be seen, while I live, in my language. What you have just said concerning my path, I write and store to be glossed with a text by a wise lady, should I come to her. This much I desire to make clear to you, as long as my conscience remains at rest. I am ready, as she wills, for fortune. Though such a pledge is not new to my ears, so let fortune spin her wheel, however it pleases her, as farmers spin their spades." All right, so real quick before we move on, lots going on here. Second half first. He says, yes, okay, I have been told that something is coming and that I need to be aware of it and be prepared for it. And I'm headed to a lady, gracious lady, that's Beatrice, who will interpret, who will gloss this text, who will help me understand what all of these signs are and what it means. And so he's saying, okay, I'm content with this. Something bad is coming, but I'm content. I'm ready. I'll be okay, right? He still doesn't know what it is, but he knows that something is coming and that someone will be there to help him understand what it is. But this, the first part is one of the most famous lines in all of the Inferno. and therefore in all of the comedy. He says he has this grief, and it's this unlike interestingly, unlike with Francesca and Paolo or even Giaco, this isn't a grief that overpowers him. This isn't a grief that signifies a kind of compassion that stands against the judgments of God. Rather, this is just grief that a loved one has died and is not with the Lord. The grief that one feels when someone dear to them dies in rebellion to God. That's the grief here, and the grief is not that they are being punished. The grief is that they had died too soon. In other words, so Dante wishes that he could have had more time with Brunetto before he died, before he came here, and the reason why is because he has this image in his mind of what some of their conversations were. Now, this is taking for granted that they met in life, and this is one of the indications that commentators look to say that they actually did meet. But this could also be a poetic representation of Dante sitting with the Tesoro, sitting with Latini's book in hand and communing with Latini in that way. Still not clear exactly what their relationship was. But here he uses this beautiful language. He says, "How grateful I am for this will be seen while I live in my language. I'm grateful for what you taught me. And my words, my language will forever be shaped by that." What did he see? What did he teach? The dear, good paternal image of you, when in the world above, from time to time, you would teach me how man might make himself eternal. Now here, yet again, is one of the indications that Dante has a lot to learn. Man make himself eternal? How does man make himself eternal? And why would it matter if you are eternal? If you are eternal in hell, why is that a good thing, right? So, man makes himself eternal. Well, can he actually make himself eternal? What does that mean? In the context of, well, you know what? Let me finish the canto, and we'll talk about this in a second. Oh, and you'll notice you notice the reference to Boethius' Consolation of Philosophy with fortune and fortune's wheel in line 93 and through 96. Then my master turned his head back around, regarding me over his shoulder, and said, "He who notes this saying listens well." That's Virgil saying, "Pay attention, fortune's wheel." Yeah, you're right. This is something to pay attention to. So basically Virgil is saying, remember Boethius. Remember what Boethius has said. Nevertheless, I moved forward, speaking with Ser Brunetto, asking if there were with him great or noteworthy companions. He answered me, "To know of some is good. Of others, silence is more laudable, time being too short for such a recital. In summary, know that all were clerics and great literary men of great fame, all made filthy with the same worldly sin. Priscian himself walks with that woeful crowd. There also is Francesco del Corso, and see there if you can stomach such scurf, him whom the servant of servants transferred from the Arno to the Bacchiglione, where he left his sinfully stretched sinews." That's the one main indication of the sin being punished here, the sinfully stretched sinews. And I won't elaborate what that means. "I could tell of more, but to keep going, walking and talking is not possible, for I see new fumes rising from the sand. Here come some people I ought not walk with. Let my treasure be commended to you, in which I still live. More I cannot ask." He turned back and seemed to be one of those who at Verona race for the green banner through the fields, and of those he seemed to be the one that wins, not the one that loses. So a lot of pathos here, a lot of interesting language. Brunetto Latini is telling Dante to remember him. Remember him. This is the immortality that Latini is speaking of. How does man make himself eternal? How does man make himself immortal? Well, it's in his books. Let my treasure, my tesoro, uh, uh, be commended to you, in which I still live, right? I live in my books. I live in my works. I live in the things that I wrote. And to an extent, that's true, right? We have, in the Divine Comedy, we have Dante. We have Dante still alive with us. He is still speaking to us. We are communing with him in an important way. And so for Dante, he was able to commune with Latini through Latini's own works, his tesoro, his treasure, in which he still lives. Right? That's the immortality that Latini is recommending, is commending to Dante. How man might make himself eternal. How? Write books, write poetry, make yourself eternal, make yourself immortal, write well, be excellent, right? And that's all to the good. But the placement here in the middle of Inferno is highly suggestive of this tension that exists. What is the good of you existing eternally in books when your soul is rotting in hell? Right? Is that the right compensation? Right? Is that like, yes, I'm in hell, but at least my name is living on in books. At least people are still reading my books, right? It smacks of the whole. What does it gain a man? What is it if a man gains the whole world and yet loses his soul? What is it if a man gains the notoriety of generations and yet loses his soul? What is it? How does it benefit a man to be known eternally in his works and yet lose his soul? Right? That's the misguided nature of Latini's advice. That's the impetus behind making yourself eternal. Because if God doesn't make you eternal, that is through redemption, through the resurrection of the flesh in Christ, in the eternal state, then what's the point, right? All your books are going to burn. All your works are going to become undone, turned to dust. And if you are in hell, what good was any of it, right? So if all we're doing, and this has particular application to teachers and instructors, especially within maybe the classical Christian movement, where we're reading old books, right? We're reading these old works. We are going back to Homer and to Virgil and Dante and Milton and all the rest, and it behooves us to recognize this point that if we are teaching our kids, if we are teaching our students to value the books above their soul and not what the books can help their soul know and learn and love, then all we're doing is filling people's bookshelves in hell. And what's the point of that, honestly? What's the point of that? So this is a really important, there's lots we could talk about here. I'm just going to focus on that. There's lots going on here in terms of Dante's relation to this man, but this is the central thing that Dante is working through. What is the point of immortality in books if your soul is in hell? And that's something that Dante himself is going to have to work through. And right now he's tempted to believe that, but he's going to have a conversion moment later on that's going to reorient everything. It's not bad to want to be known by generations of people who live after you die. But if that replaces your own relationship with Christ, if that takes the place of immortality in blessedness before the throne of God, before the face of God, well then it's all worthless. Because your soul is what is being shaped. Your soul is what matters. Your soul and your soul's posture toward God is what this world is about. And growing in obedience and faith and in our ensouled life here in this world, aimed at the next, aimed at the eternal blessings that come in Christ alone and not in any books that you have written that have stood the test of time. All right. So with that, we will close Canto 15, and we'll see you next time for Canto 16. Take care.